This is Drips News, bringing you the latest headlines. Today, we'll cover Trump's hints at tariff relief for auto stocks, the escalating trade war's impact on Canadian car workers, shifts in Trump's tariff team, and the administration's stance on deportations. We'll also examine Zelensky's plea for Trump to visit Ukraine, the grounding of a helicopter tour company after a deadly crash, rising unemployment fears fueled by tariffs, Trump's escalating war with the press, and the administration's freeze on funding for Harvard. Stay tuned for these developing stories. Auto stocks surged Monday following President Trump's suggestion of potential tariff relief for car companies. Trump indicated he was looking at something to assist companies transitioning to domestically produced parts, while he didn't specify if relief would apply to existing auto import tariffs or upcoming duties on car parts. The news spurred a rally in shares of General Motors, Stellantis, and Ford, all exceeding a 3% increase. The specifics of Trump's plan remain unclear, particularly regarding the 25% tariffs on foreign auto imports and parts, even those covered under the USMCA agreement. Canadian car workers, particularly in Windsor, Ontario, are pushing back against U.S. tariffs, decrying Trump's suggestion that Canada stole American auto jobs as ludicrous. The Lawton family, representing 5 generations of Ford workers, emphasizes that these have always been Canadian jobs. Windsor, a key automotive hub with a history dating back to the late 19th century, faces 25% tariffs on foreign-made vehicles and steel aluminum imports. The region, deeply intertwined with Detroit's automotive industry, employs thousands directly and indirectly in the sector, highlighting the significant impact of these tariffs on the Canadian economy. The community stands firm in its automotive heritage, despite the challenges posed by the ongoing trade war, which leads us to the next topic. The Trump administration's abrupt reversal on reciprocal tariffs saw Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent emerge as the key figure, signaling a shift in White House power dynamics. Bessent, reportedly influenced by business leaders and his understanding of the bond market, persuaded Trump to pause tariffs, contrasting with the more hardline stances of Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Trade Advisor Pete Navarro. This shift highlights how internal advisors navigate Trump's policies by framing alternative approaches that align with his objectives, while addressing market reactions. Now let's turn to another policy matter. The Trump administration asserts it has no legal obligation to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland man illegally deported to El Salvador. Despite a Supreme Court ruling to facilitate his release, the administration argues that this only requires them to adjust his immigration status if he returns from a high-security prison in El Salvador. Justice Department lawyers contend that compelling the administration to engage in diplomatic efforts with El Salvador would violate the separation of powers and infringe on presidential authority in foreign relations. This stance comes as El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele is set to meet with President Trump, raising questions about potential discussions on the matter. Speaking of international relations, following a devastating Russian missile attack, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has implored President Trump to visit Ukraine to witness the aftermath and understand what Putin did. Zelensky emphasized the need for Trump to see the human cost of the conflict before making any decisions or engaging in negotiations. He also referenced a prior contentious meeting with Trump and Vice President Vance, where he felt Vance was justifying Putin's actions. This plea comes amid concerns that Russian narratives are gaining traction in the U.S., influencing perceptions of the conflict. Shifting gears now. Following a devastating Russian missile attack, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has implored President Trump to visit Ukraine to witness the aftermath and understand what Putin did. Zelensky emphasized the need for Trump to see the human cost of the conflict before making any decisions or engaging in negotiations. He also referenced a prior contentious meeting with Trump and Vice President Vance, where he felt Vance was justifying Putin's actions. This plea comes amid concerns that Russian narratives are gaining traction in the U.S., influencing perceptions of the conflict. Now let's change course and look at a domestic issue. The FAA has grounded New York helicopter charter. the company involved in the Hudson River crash that claimed 6 lives last week. The emergency order was issued partly due to the firing of the company's director of operations. The crash involved a Bell 206 helicopter and resulted in the deaths of a Siemens executive, his family, and the pilot. The company had already voluntarily suspended flights following the tragedy. From the tragic to the concerning. A Federal Reserve Bank of New York survey reveals growing consumer anxieties over inflation, unemployment, and stock market instability, fueled by the ongoing global trade war. Inflation expectations have risen to their highest level since October 2023, with unemployment concerns reaching levels not seen since the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. The survey also indicates decreased confidence in the stock market and heightened expectations for rising gold prices. These findings align with other consumer sentiment surveys, reflecting broader concerns about the economic impact of tariffs, even as market-based inflation measures remain low. From economics to politics. President Trump is intensifying his conflict with the media, demanding positive coverage and retaliating against critical reporting. He recently berated CNN's Caitlin Collins during a press briefing and called for CBS to face consequences for allegedly defamatory coverage. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, aligned with Trump, has launched investigations into NPR and PBS, raising concerns about potential censorship and political interference in media. This escalating tension underscores Trump's continued efforts to control the narrative and pressure news organizations. And finally, the Trump administration is freezing $2.2 billion in funding to Harvard University after the school rejected policy demands, including the elimination of diversity programs and changes to hiring practices. Harvard President Alan Garber stated that the university would not compromise its independence or constitutional rights, viewing the demands as governmental overreach into academic affairs. The administration claims these changes are necessary to combat anti-Semitism and ensure federal funds aren't used to support discrimination. This marks the first time an elite university has publicly defied the White House over such demands. And now for our final segment. That's all the news we have for you today. Thank you for tuning in to Drips News. Stay informed, stay engaged, and join us next time for more critical updates. Until then, have a fantastic day.